But yeah, the early stages frustrated me with the way that they played, but fair play to Arsenal.
Arsenal have beaten Ostersund 3-0. We'll have much more reaction on that game very shortly. Elsewhere, Borussia Dortmund have beaten Atalanta 3-2. Batshuayi with 2 goals in that game, which means it's now 5 goals in 3 games for the former Chelsea man. In fact, it's been a night of goals for former Premier League players across Europe this evening. Mario Balotelli put Nice 2-0 up, but they've gone on to lose 3-2 in that one. Florian Thauvin, formerly of Newcastle, scored Marseille's 3rd in their victory. AC Milan had a comfortable 3-0 win over Ludogorets, and Athletic Bilbao have beaten Spartak Moscow 3-1. Adji Ritz with 2 goals in that one, which now means he's the top scorer in the competition. A professional job, as Danny Welbeck called it. He also spoke a lot about the pitch tonight, that 4G pitch, said it was very hard. He mentioned it a few times. Do you think that had any effect on his performance?
I think without doubt. And when a player is coming back from the very bad injuries that he's had, I think he's just wanting to get through the game unscathed. He said the pitch was hard. I think that's one that he could have really leapt at with the stature and physique that he has. Perhaps Danny Welbeck playing on grass might have attacked that with a bit more aggression. There, I think that's the wrong option. You know, in fairness, I don't like to be too critical because I know that it's almost bone on bone. He's had big operations on his knees and he's lucky to be even playing, but there he's not quick enough. He's not quick enough in mind or in body. This one is really odd because I felt he might come onto this and hit it, but instead he just lends it to somebody else, and he's really sort of devoid of confidence at the moment. But you know, he's had that with Lacazette. The manager seems to haven't really sort of helped the player. He's a lack of confidence. He needs to get into his corner. This again is not very convincing. And it was a difficult night for him, and indeed Godas, the striker for the opposition, was probably a better player tonight than Danny Welbeck.
You spoke before the game about how he needs to stake a claim in this Arsenal side. A big opportunity. He is going to have to improve, Jermaine, if they are... Well, they very much look like they're through to the last 16 and could get a tougher draw.
Look, I think the more games he gets, the more he'll improve. I've been in a situation, I remember when I ruptured my Achilles and even being asked to train on a 3G pitch, you're off going, anything could happen here. So, you know, I feel from a little bit
You have to
tonight.
wonder if that's why Wenger left Jack Wilshere at home.
Possibly.
Sure.
They do have their risks, these pitches, as good as they are for Ostersunds in their conditions and stuff. For players that don't play on them and train on them on a daily basis, your body reacts different to them, and obviously with Danny having the injuries that he's had, I just think he was a bit worried tonight, and you could tell by his interview afterwards, couldn't you, Martin? I mean, you mentioned it off air that maybe
it's clearly in his mind.
Yeah, maybe it's just in his head, and you know, I don't blame him at all. You know, it was about getting through the game for him, and then kicking on from here. I think.
I think he mentioned it in every answer that he gave, but at some point he has to realise that, you know, he's done the rehabilitation. The knees can stand up to everything and get out there and do his job and forget about his body. And when you've got that in your mind, it's very difficult to be as effective as he needs to be. And they're going to need him to be effective.
When your knee has... When you've done your rehab and then it lets you down again, which is the situation he's had. He's not had one operation, he's had, I think, 2 really serious ones. So, yes, the mental side is the toughest part and trusting his body again, but that will come.
It'll be interesting to see how he does next week at the Emirates. You've got to presume he'll start in that one as well. It was a dream start, Martin, for Arsenal, but how much of that was down to the way Östersund approached this game?
Well, we talked about their stage fright. They seemed to be very fearful of Arsenal. They gave them far too much space. And, you know, it was a comedy of errors. The goalkeeper there, it's an awful save. I mean, it's almost impossible to present it that easily to an Arsenal player. Monreal has cashed in again. He's scoring an awful lot of goals recently. He's a real man in the team. And they sensed early on they're paying Arsenal too much respect. They went after it again, and again, this was just an unlucky own goal here that they've conceded. So, you know, once the first 2 goals went in, I think that really upset their rhythm, and they seem to be playing with a lot of fear in those opening exchanges.
And then went into the second half 2-0 up. We're soon 3-0 up, but before that, just before, Jermaine, should Ostersund have had a penalty?
I think they should have done. Yeah, I mean, I'm very surprised that they didn't ask more questions of players. You can see here that the referee's got a great view of it. Not only the referee, but the linesman, obviously, and the third official behind the goal has got a great view of it. And Godas just kind of gets there first. For me, it looks like Mustafi, I think, that has a nibble at him, and he goes over. And that's a clear penalty. And at 2-0, it's a vital time in the game to get that. You can just see here, Martin.
He's gone with his left foot. He's a right-footed player. He swung at it blindly, and he's lucky to get away with that.
I think it's a penalty.
Yeah, you took Goddess out further up the pitch in the first half and got away with it, Mustafi, as well.
We was all baffled by that decision.
And then not long later, within a minute, Arsenal went up the other end and Ozil made it 3-0. But again, in this one, Jermaine, the goalkeeper, do you think should have done better, Ali Keita?
There's a couple of individual errors, obviously, within the game for Ostersund that cost them the first 2 goals. And I think this one, again, looks a fantastic through ball to Mesut Ozil. Makes a good run. But Keita, anytime you see a goalkeeper falling back like in that way, and he also gets a decent enough hand on the ball for me to stop it, then there's a mistake being made. You know, you can hear the goalkeepers up and down the country going crazy at me right now, saying, "What do you know?" But I know enough to say something's not right there in that, you know, with that goal hitting the back of the net. And I think he'll be very disappointed with that case.
Ozil, though, you have to say, I thought tonight played really well. Played with a hunger. Great touch there in the build-up to that, and got his goal.
He's directly involved in 8 goals in the last 7 games in European competition for Arsenal. Shows just how influential he is.
Well, now all the talk is that he's obviously signed his new contract. He can get back in, being influential and be an important part in that Arsenal team going forward.
And then Ostersund were awarded a penalty just before full-time. How did this one come about, Martin?
Well, I think it was very unnecessary, you know, because Bellerin here, I mean, if you can see that Bellerin here makes the tackle unnecessary. He's running onto a defender, to Chambers. It didn't need to be made. If you see Chambers is about to square up his opponent, he's not knowing what's around, but Ospina is an excellent reflex goalkeeper in terms of making saves from penalties. And he just had too much for him. I don't know why the striker didn't step up and take that one. Goddess was outstanding, and maybe that should have been his moment to say, I'm going to take the penalty.
Definitely their best player, but Ospina keeping it 3-0 at the end. We're going to hear from the Arsenal manager, Arsene Wenger, now with Matt Smith.
Saying happy?
Yes, we did the job, and we started well, had controlled the game, and overall we played against a side who is good, you know. They played... They beat Hertha Berlin here, played 2-2 against Athletic Bilbao. You can see that's a quality team, but once we opened the score, I think we were in control. Maybe didn't push enough in the final 13 hours in the second half, but overall we played a serious game, job done.
Yeah, they looked nervous, didn't they, at the start? And maybe that helped you.
Yes, they looked very nervous at the start, and we took advantage of it.
Yeah. And impressed with how you coped with the conditions and the situation, because there was a lot of unknowns, I guess, for you and for your team tonight.
Yes, of course, because people wondered why we didn't practice before, but I think the warm-up is good to adapt to the speed of the ball. You know, what is important here is the technical ability, the accuracy of the passing, and we adapted very well because we have a good technical level.
Yeah, and although we talked about the fact that this isn't Europe's premier competition, it's also an opportunity, isn't it, for some younger players through the group stage and now even in the knockout phase for them to get much needed time on the pitch for you?
Yes, that's important, of course, and I think the younger players played many games in a group stage and they did very well. That's why I keep them in the squad, you know, and give them minutes when I can.
Also, does it give you the option to think about resting 1 or 2 senior players next week with the League Cup final in mind?
We'll see. Maybe we'll see. You know, but we want to win the game. But for us, it's important to win the game at home, and we'll try to put out the team again who can win it.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, that Carabao Cup final against Man City 3 days after that second leg. He said, "We'll see." Martin, should he be resting players?
Yes, I think he probably needs to. I mean, the standard that we saw tonight was not the best, was it, from the opposition? So he might well feel that he can do that, but he wants to keep that winning mentality. He wants to keep that pattern of framework, and he likes the offensive side of the game, and the partnerships are now forming. And so the likes of Welbeck and people will he play him in all these games in quick succession? We've just been talking about Danny Welbeck, and is he fit enough? And I genuinely believe the player is in pain. So he has to manage that situation.
Deserves a chance then?
Possibly, yeah. I mean, he's got to earn it. You know, I think Danny will come first into Arsene Wenger's thoughts, knowing what he can bring to the table. It was only last year, you're talking about the FA Cup final and the impact that he had in that particular game. You know, managers don't forget about those things. So Nketiah will get his opportunity, but he'll have to earn it.
It's a big call because Arsene Wenger's left them exposed. There's 4 players been allowed to leave in the various transfer windows. They're like all those goals that they've lost in the likes of Giroud. So a lot of resting on Danny Welbeck.
Yeah. Well